Hello everyone, welcome back. I want to do a 2-day after analysis where I was shooting 400 and 500 yards for the second time with this primary arms 5 to 25 by 56 scope. Okay, so I've done lots of videos on this scope, but you didn't see the video, the first attempt at me shooting 400 and 500 yards because it was a complete bomb. Okay, so what happened was I ended up getting to this range very late. The sun was starting to go down, so uh, I didn't get too many attempts at shooting 400 and 500 yards. So I figured out after the fact, like 2 days ago, what happened the first time. So for the last year and a half, I guess 2 years, I have been shooting the primary arms Raptor scopes. Okay, so the primary arms Raptor scopes you have a reticle where the bullet drop is given to you in yardages, and it is bullet specific. Okay, which is easy. Usually, what you do is you get, like, let's say either a 50-yard zero or a 100-yard zero. And then you'll get out to 300 yards and you'll true it out, and that'll usually get you all the way out to 600 yards. If you need to go further, then you would just true it out at, let's say, 500 yards. Okay, so that's all fine. So with this primary arms 525 by 56, this has a Griffin grid. Okay, so it's a mill grid. So I knew that the numbers that are shown to you in the grid are in mils. They have no relation to yardages, and it is not caliber specific. I knew that. I knew that going into it. I knew what my bullet drops were supposed to be. I already knew all that. But here's what happened. When I got to this gun range, right, because I was like rushed to get the stuff out of the truck, get myself set up, get into position, running out of daylight here. Under the pressure, okay, what I did is I reverted back to the thing I had been practicing for like the last 2 years with the Raptor reticle. So instead of holding properly, let's say 1 mil at 300 yards, 2 mils at 400 yards, and 3 mils at 500 yards, what I did is I held 3 mils at 300 yards and 4 mils at 400 yards and 5 mils at 500 yards, and it was too dark for me to see the impacts on the burn behind it, because the sun was like starting to look like this, and I didn't get any hits, and I didn't even realize why I didn't get any hits until I had some time to think about it. Okay, so and this is why I do these analysis reports, because these are important things that I need to remember. These are mistakes I have made, and mistakes that you can learn off of. So even though I knew what I was supposed to do with this Griffin grid, right? Even though I knew what I was supposed to do, because of the stress, I reverted back to the thing I had been doing. Okay, so that was the first lesson I learned out of this. As you're shifting back and forth between scopes, make sure you make the proper mental adjustments. And it might even be a good idea to pick one reticle, one reticle style or the other. Okay, so I'm kind of thinking that since I intend to do a lot of distance shooting and use different calibers, it probably makes more sense for me to work with a grid rather than a bullet specific bullet drop compensator. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking. Okay, so that was the first lesson learned. Okay, so so I went out there. This time I had a chance to think about it, and this time I knew I had more. I went earlier in the day. I had more time to think about it. So the first one here I shot at 300 yards. The first group I shot at 300 yards was the ones that you see in the circles here. Can you see them? Let me pause the camera, get you guys a little bit closer. Okay, so the first time I shot this, it's the ones with the circles here at 300 yards. The wind was pushing to the right. I mentioned that in the original video. And I get a group at 300 yards of about 6 inches. I shot it again. Same thing. It basically landed on top of it. I didn't adjust for wind or anything. That time it opened up. The second time it opened up to 7 inches. That's the ones without the hole, right? Without the hole. So I'm 6 to 7 inches at 300 yards. And it's good that I did this because it made me like kind of pay attention to the wind. And I looked at the wind ribbons. And I saw, yeah, they're definitely pushing to the right. Okay, so that's, actually I should mark this, 300 yards. Okay, and that's with a PMC X-Tax, 55 grains. Okay, so the rifle is a Palmetto upper, and I was using a radical lower because I was testing out that trigger. It was a mil-spec trigger, but it was really nice. Okay, so then I shot the 400 yards. I'll move you guys over here. So with the 400 yards, let's see, I think initially I do 5 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at 400 yards, the first group was 11 inches. All right. Now what I did is I kind of went, I shot that, and then I dropped back. I dropped to 500 yards, which is this one here. Right. So the ones with the circle were shot together. All right. So at 500 yards, I got a really nice group again with these PMC X-Tax using this Palmetto upper. So I got, again, we'll look at the ones with the circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the total group here, straight, total group here is 12 and a half inches. Okay. Now I got this wildflower down here. Now here's the thing, when I'm shooting this now, I can't see the bullseye. At 400 yards, I could see the bullseye. At 500 yards, I can't see the bullseye. So I'm basically holding the reticle, okay, in the center of the paper. So it's not a perfect hold, and I still managed to get. Let's see, the 4 shots are at 8 inches. So we got 4 shots at 8 inches at 500 yards. Okay, so here I can't even see the bullseye. I'm just kind of holding in the center of the paper. So both these times I'm using the reticle, right? So at 400 yards I'm using the reticle. So it was a 1 mil hold at 300 yards, a 2 mil hold. So it was a 1 mil hold at the 300 yards. Okay, then it was a 2 mil hold at the 400 yards, and then at 500 yards it was a 3 mil hold, and that was on the reticle. Okay, so the second time I shot the 400, right, that's the ones without the holes. Okay, this time I didn't hold on the reticle. What I did is I dialed up. Okay, so I dialed up 2 mils at 400 yards, 2 mils up, and then I got these 5 shots on the paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one down here. So the total group was about 9.5 inches. But these 4 shots, man, damn, 4 inches at 400 yards, man. These 4 shots came in at like 1 MOA at 400 yards. So that's that. So here I dialed up on the reticle. Now, one of the things that I found is that when I was holding on the reticle the first time I shot this, right? So instead of dialing up, I basically went down to the 2 mil line. When you're looking at this reticle, the numbers that tell you 2 and 3 and 4, they're like way out here on the edge. Okay, so the way I was shooting this, I had the sun like beaming down. Let me back this camera up a little bit. I had the sun beaming down on my left side, which was distracting the shit out of me, and I had a hard time seeing the numbers on the reticle. So as I was saying, so the first time I shot the ones that you saw with the circle, basically I'm taking a sniper hold, so I got my left hand on the stock, I'm pulling it into my chest, I'm laying prone, right? This was all shot prone, with the exception of the 300. That is shot benched, but the 4 and 500 I shot prone. So as I'm taking this hold, the sun is like glaring, and I got my cap backwards because I got the camera adapter on the scope, and it's gonna hit the brim of my hat, so I have to turn this backwards. And I got my earmuffs on, so it's not. I couldn't even turn this sideways because my earmuffs were on. So I got my hat backwards, and the sun's like coming in right at this angle over here, and it's really annoying me. And it's hard for me to see the 2 mil line. 2 mil line when I was shooting 400 yards, and then when I went to shoot the 500 yards, and I'm trying to hold at 3 mils on the reticle again. I'm having a hard time because it's like at the edge of my scope. I'm having a hard time seeing, like, making out what's the 2 and what's the 3, right? With numbers, and not because it's not clear, but because the sun is like just glaring in, and I'm just having a hard time. So that's why the second time I shot it, I said, hey, let's dial up. So dialing up took away that whole, am I on the right, you know, am I looking at the scope on the right line in the reticle? Because once I dialed up 2 mils here, then because I could see the chevron, right? That's like all the lines lead to the center of the reticle. So I just basically put that underneath this bullseye here, and I was able to take my shot with less fuss. The sun was still a pain in the ass, right? But I'm not needing to try and figure out which is the right line to hold. So this is like the first time where this really became an issue, because like in the past, it's like, what's the big deal with holding on the reticle? Okay? Well, the problem is like when the sun's beaming in over here, and you're being distracted, and you know, or maybe there's other things going on, like maybe glass is fogging up or something, or maybe, you know, maybe there's other things that are preventing you to see those little numbers in your reticle. Dialing, because once you dial up, I mean, that's it. Now you just put your chevron there, and all the other lines kind of lead to the center. So I found a real practical reason for dialing up on the scope instead of using the reticle. So that was a big lesson. Now, I don't shoot 500 yards that often. I have shot it a bunch of times, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 times. I do have to drive, so that's why I really sit down and I think about it, because it's a long drive for me. You know, I want to collect this information so I know what I'm doing the next time I'm doing it. Okay. So same deal when I shot the 500 yards. Let me see, is that on the? So the second time I shot the 500 yards, same deal. I dialed up on a reticle 3 mils, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the paper. Fifth one came off the paper, so we lost the 5th one. Okay. And the 4 shots that we do have on the paper at 500 yards, these came in at 14 inches. Okay, so the earlier group was much nicer that I got. All right, so one of the things that I did, make sure the camera's on me. One of the things that I did try, and this was in between this, I actually didn't get any hits on the paper. I'll tell you about that in a second. So in between shooting on my second attempt at 500 yards, the sun was like really irritating me, right? So what I did is, because the sun was coming in this way, what I did is, instead of taking that sniper hold where I'm taking the stock and putting it into my chest, I basically held the gun one-handed, and I'm like kind of shielding myself against the sun, because it was just impossible. It was just, the sun was just like blasting me. So I could see in the reticle I was holding it reasonably well, like it wasn't coming too far off the center. I didn't get any hits, but initially I thought it was because I wasn't holding the gun steady enough. But what it ended up happening, and I realized this after I was there, the wind had died down. So when the first time I shot the 400 yards, I think I had something like the wind was like 5 to 7 miles an hour. So at 400 yards, the wind was blowing right, so I was holding left a 1/2 mil. Okay, that Athena BPR reticle has, gives you mil dots and 1/2 mil dots, which are a little bit smaller. So on the 400 yards, I was holding a 1/2 mil to the left the first time I shot this. On the 500 yards, I was holding a full mil, right? So this is what did we say? That's on 3 mils down, and I'm holding 1 full mil left when I got the ones that we saw here with the circles. Okay, so the second time I took an attempt at 500 yards, and the sun was like blasting me, and I tried to shoot it basically one-handed with my left hand covering my eye over here. I did not realize that the wind had died down to like almost nothing. Okay, and basically for the rest of the day, while I was there, I didn't see too much wind. So what I did is I continued to hold 1 full mil to the left, and then what happened was 1 foot. So there was about 2 feet between this paper and that paper, and the bullets ended up going in between these two papers because the wind had died down, and now one of the hits was down here where I marked it as with an X. Okay, and you can see how it lines up with the ones over here. So I did not pay attention to the fact that the wind had died down. I'm still holding 1 mil to the left, and nothing got on the paper. So I realized this. I went back. I shot this again. Now this time I found at 500 yards. I found a spot that was more shady. It was like a berm that provided me some shade. So I got it. So I'm still at 500 yards, but I shifted over. I've got some natural shade, so now I can take a proper hold. So now I am dialed. I'm 3 mils down. No, actually no. I've dialed up 3 mils on the turret, right? I'm holding the chevron in the center of the paper because that's the best that I can see, but I'm not holding for wind, so I'm centered, and that's the 4 shots that you see here without the holes. Okay, so that is my after action report on shooting that primary arms 5-25 at 400 and 500 yards and 300 obviously, but 300 was just to make sure everything was like working, was working okay in order to go out to 400 and 500 yards. So yeah, that's my after action report, and some interesting things we learned from this. The rifle, in case I mentioned it before, that scope is mounted on a Palmetto 16-inch Palmetto upper, and the lower. Here we go. So we got the 5-25 by 56. It's mounted on a Palmetto 16-inch upper. It's aerial precision lower that I put together, and this red dot here in the offset turned out to be extremely useful, especially at the 3, 4, 500 yards, because especially with the gun on the bipod, what I was doing is with the guns on the bipod, right? With my left eye, I'm looking over here, right, in the red dot. That's getting me on target. Then I would basically just wink my left eye, look in the scope, and then my crosshairs were on target. So I didn't have to zoom down. I could just stay in like 25 power, and I could easily find it. A lot of people will put it on the right side, right? The problem was that, I mean, that works great for CQB where you're doing a lot of this kind of stuff. When this is sitting on the bipod, I don't want to be shifting the gun off the bipod, and I don't want to be bringing my head over the gun. So with the scope, with the red dot mounted on the left side, I don't have to move my head. I can see the red dot right here. I mean, I got the caps on right here, right? So like this, even though right now I'm in 25 power, in my left eye I can see the dot. I can put the dot on the spot right there. Then I'll wink my left eye, and now I can see the crosshair on that spot that I was just looking at a second ago. Okay, just by winking my left eye. So I can just wink my eye back and forth, and I can switch from looking in the scope, from looking in the dot in the red dot to looking in the scope, and vice versa. Okay, so some interesting things were learned, and I plan to go back there tomorrow with a different rifle, and I'm looking forward to posting a video on that. Talk to y'all soon. Drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'm also going to include a playlist with some scopes and some scope and optics videos that I've been doing for the last few years. So I can't. Shit, I didn't hold that right. So I got the sun on my left side. I had to flip my hat around because otherwise it was hitting the scope because of the adapter extension. So I can see why people prefer to dial, because I kept like trying to reference the number, which like at the edge of my scope, and dial backwards when I'm shooting this. I had to keep referencing back. There it is. There you go. That's 5. That's 25. 500 yards.